Today, we're gonna take a look at the best triathlon watches on the market. We're gonna go over about a dozen watches, talk about what they do well, what I wish were slightly better, and how I'm personally ranking each of these watches against the other top triathlon watches on the market. And that's, as of this recording, this video is of August of 2022. Let's start off by mentioning a watch that I'm actually not going to talk about, and that is the Polar Vantage M2. I'm actually leaving it off this list here just because, at this point, it's definitely not a watch that I would really recommend for you guys to consider. I found GPS tracking to be, a little bit questionable, not horrible, and I've definitely found the screen to be a little bit on the dim side. Now, this watch normally costs $300, and maybe last year that would have been fine. It would have landed it, probably on my best budget triathlon watch list. But this year, there are so many better options for that price, or even less, even from Polar. And there is one budget option from COROS that I'll mention, the COROS Pace 2. I've got it ranked here at number 12. It's a watch that has a triathlon mode, it has running power, it has great battery life, all packed into a slim, small watch that costs $200. So, if you are looking for one of the best budget triathlon watches, this is definitely one that you should probably consider. But I'll also mention that COROS makes a few other watches, at slightly higher price points. The COROS Vertex 2 it's a big watch, it's a beast of a watch. But if you do other things like, multi-day hikes or other things that are very, battery intensive, very long activities, then the Vertex 2 with its multi-band GPS might be worth considering as well. And coming in here at number 11 is the all-new Polar Pacer, which costs $200. The Polar Pacer is missing running power, which the Pace 2 has, but I've got it ahead of the COROS Pace 2, largely because, Polar really packs in a lot of additional features into all of their watches. You can pick between something like 150 different sports profiles on this watch. It has sleep tracking, it has daily suggested training based off, all of your previous training history. And in my open water swimming test, it actually tested pretty well, even compared to, some of the other Polar watches. In fact, that Pacer actually tested a little bit more accurately than the Pacer Pro in some of my tests, but I still have the Pacer Pro here at 10th, largely because it does have a few more features that the Pacer does not have, but it comes in at $100 more. So when you pay that extra money for the Pacer Pro, you do get a built-in barometer, so you can do things like track the number of hills that you've run with their hill climbing feature, hill splitter feature is what it's called. This watch also has running power. It has route turn-by-turn navigation, not really true mapping, but it does have like turn-by-turn navigation. If you do want to see a full breakdown between the Pacer and the Pacer Pro, I definitely have you covered. I did a separate video going over all of those specific details, and I'll link it up here somewhere. And then coming in at number 9 on this list, I have the WAHOO Element Rival. And this watch is super interesting because WAHOO actually developed it. It's kind of their first watch that they have, but they definitely have triathlon in mind with this watch. But it'll do things like switch automatically between swimming, biking, and running without you having to press a button when you're actually in a triathlon race, and it'll record all of those splits for you. But over the past year, they've also been, slowly plugging away with regular updates for this watch with things like a track mode, music controls, planned workouts. But I haven't had the best luck with this watch when it comes to, GPS accuracy or battery life. So, it's typically not one that I recommend unless you're really someone that wants to stick around in that WAHOO ecosystem. And then at number 8, I have the Polar Vantage V2. And I really like the overall fit and finish of this device. It's a really nice watch with a really nice touch screen. And it's clearly Polar's kind of go-to triathlon watch. And I'm a big fan of Polar's entire ecosystem. But with this Vantage V2, I just haven't had the best luck with GPS tracking, especially when it comes to like open water swimming accuracy. And that's why this watch is here, kind of on that kind of top half of this list. And very similar to that Vantage V2, here at number 7, I have the Polar Grit X Pro. Really, you could put the Polar X Grit and the Grit X Pro here. I really like how this watch looks. I would say, you know, that it's kind of Polar's answer to the Garmin FENIX type watches. And it's kind of this, you know, rugged, do anything watch with, you know, a very beautiful design. Now, I have had a little bit better luck with GPS accuracy with this watch for some odd reason. And you know, it is a bit heavier watch. So if you are trying to decide between those two watches, definitely keep that in mind. But both the V2 and the Garmin X Pro both come in at about $500. And then at number 6, I have a watch that was, you know, probably on the top of my list last year, and that is the Garmin Forerunner 945. It's, you know, it's just such an excellent, you know, all-around watch. And now that Garmin has updated this series of watch, you can get the 945 at like a screaming good deal. I will leave links to where you can kind of buy all of these watches, you know, in the description of this video, and, you know, pin a comment to the top. But the 945 has, you know, music and maps and swimming, biking, and running options. I will say that the, you know, GPS on the 945, you know, hasn't been as accurate as, you know, some of the newer Garmin devices that I've been testing. Even that Forerunner 745 tested better, and, you know, all of my GPS accuracy testings, they must have done something kind of in between those two watches. I don't really have the 745 here on my list. I'm just kind of squeezing it in here. It's kind of like a mini 945, but the 745 was Garmin's, you know, lightweight, more affordable triathlon watch, but they've since discontinued it in an effort to kind of streamline that Forerunner product lineup. It is a great device. At this point, I would be a little bit leery of some of these devices that are older, just because they might not get the same software updates that you get on all of their newer watches. But for some reason, the price of the 745 has actually been, you know, above or right in line with the, you know, more capable 945 lately. Both watches have been heavily discounted. Now, on my wrist at the moment is the Apple Watch Series 7, which, you know, I have here at number 5. I think that might surprise a lot of people, and maybe it's in the wrong spot, but GPS accuracy is very good on this particular watch. I will also say that it's one of the best optical wrist-based heart rate monitors that I've tested, you know, really throughout the entire channel. But I'm also taking into account some of the new beta software that I have on this particular watch. They now have like a triathlon mode, similar to that WAHOO rival watch. It'll know when you're transitioning from swimming to biking to running in a triathlon race. It also has running power, which is pretty interesting. And the new swim mode seems to be kind of automatically detecting kick sets and different strokes and things like that. So, all of that is leading me to believe that Apple is really taking some of these kind of fitness activities a little bit more seriously. It's definitely one of like the smartest watches that's on this particular list. But I will say that, you know, battery life is just I would say a complete nightmare here, making it really for only triathletes that are doing shorter races. But, you know, if you are not going super long, and you're, you know, firmly entrenched in that entire Apple ecosystem with an iPhone, then the Apple Watch Series 7 is definitely a decent triathlon watch. And then at number 4 on my list is the Garmin Instinct 2 and Instinct 2 Solar. And in all honesty, you know, it could have been higher on my list. It's a rugged and very full-featured watch with, you know, a more simple monochrome display that, you know, saves on battery life. I found the open water swimming accuracy to be really good. The price is also pretty compelling. It's $350 or $450 for the Solar variety. But, you know, ahead of the Instinct, I have another watch that costs $350, and that is the Forerunner 255. And this watch is one that, you know, I probably will be highly recommending on my channel to people who are looking for a triathlon watch, just because the price point and the feature set is very compelling here. The 255 has, you know, one of the best, if not the best, GPS tracking for, you know, swimming, biking, and running. It has a really nice set of tools for tracking recovery, like sleep tracking and HRV, or heart rate variability tracking. There's also a music version of this watch for $50 more. But you know, it's not something that I typically recommend. It's not something that I use personally, so I would save money there if you're okay with not having music on your watch. Now, one step up from the 255 is Garmin's 955, and it adds a touchscreen, mapping, you know, a few other items like training readiness score. It is a better watch, but I would say, you know, only marginally. And it costs either $500 or $600, depending on if you opt for a solar variety of this particular watch. I have a full video comparing the 255 and 955 if you're kind of struggling between those two watches. And then I have another video comparing the 955 and the #1 triathlon watch on my list, which is, you know, this Garmin FENIX 7/EPIX watch. And they're pretty much the same watches with the exception of the screen. The EPIX has a 1.3-inch touch bright AMOLED screen, whereas the FENIX is a more traditional transflective display. I actually think the brighter display is nice to have. It's much sharper, it's much easier to read. You can see things kind of a little bit more clearly if you're swimming and you're glancing at it underwater. The only reason you might want to opt for that FENIX 7 would be if you do prefer all the different sizing options from the FENIX, or you prefer the longer battery life. The FENIX has like 3 sizes and the EPIX just has the 1. Now, there are currently some software differences between the EPIX and FENIX and the 955. The 955 actually has some features that the more expensive FENIX and EPIX watches don't have. I went over all of that in my 955 versus EPIX comparison video, but I do expect all of that software to be updated here by Garmin shortly. They really can't have, you know, a $900 or $1,000 EPIX watch missing features that the $500 955 has. Okay, you know, maybe I left off a watch that you think should be on this list, or maybe you want to make fun of me for, you know, posting a lot of Garmin watches towards the top of this list here, and I think that would be fair. The place to do that would be right below in the comments section. Let me know what you think. Or, you know, if you want to come up with your own dirty dozen, that would be okay too. I would definitely love to check it out. But either way, be sure to get out there, swim, bike, run, rinse, and then repeat it all over again. And we will see you guys on the next one.